Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. The podcast where we jump to the latest beats in the decentralized world and chat with some of the brilliant minds in the Web3 industry. Today, I'm excited to be talking to Jay, founder and CEO of Supersight. For those who don't know, Supersight is an AI search engine for blockchain data that's helping bring simplicity to the complex world of crypto analytics. Jay has been knee-deep in the Web3 space since 2017 as an investor and trader. He eats, sleeps, and breathes blockchain data. So, who better to break down the on-chain and off-chain concepts that baffle so many of us? In this episode, we'll dive into Jay's journey into Web3, pick his brain on crypto market trends, and get his tips for aspiring Web3 developers and entrepreneurs. It's going to be a fun conversation filled with insightful bites. So, guys, buckle up. So, hi Jay, it's so great to have you on the show today.
Hi, Adebisi. It's a real pleasure to be here.
All right, how are things going over at Supersight?
Good, yeah. There's so much going on. As you know, the market's picking up. There's actually a lot happening in the AI space as well with the OpenAI Sora release. The AI projects are really pumping as well. So there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest here, but I think the important thing is we've got to keep our heads down and keep building, and the market should reward us for it.
Yeah, I guess it's the year that will get rewarded for the bear market. Markets is here as a form of reward for us.
100%, 100%. And we actually started building around November 22, just as FTX and everything was happening. And I think kudos to both of us for still being here during the dark times, right?
Okay. Okay, Jay. Before we dive right into today's question, I would like to ask about your journey into this space. Aware you've been involved in crypto since 2017. That's like 7 years ago. So what first got you excited about the space and made you want to start a company in this industry?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. To be honest, at the time, I was when I first heard about crypto, I was at school, right? I think people were doing presentations. I was reading The Economist, and I think I wasn't curious enough at the time. I read about it, and I just accepted the views that the people said. Oh, it's a very scary thing. It keeps going down. There are crazy crashes. But in 2017 is when I really got in, and I was working at a sales place at the time. We were doing cold calling sales. It was me and a friend, right? We worked together. We were discussing Bitcoin, right? The price was rising, and he's telling me a friend of his was making trades and had quite a few Bitcoin. And after, I gathered some of this information, I did a bit of research myself. I took a small position. And then another one of my friends also got in, and I ended up convincing him to get into the space. And that was really what initiated my entry into the space. And from there, I think over time I was trading, investing, and eventually I realized there were a bunch of problems here, and I had to start a company in this space because I started companies already in things like e-commerce. So it was a natural fit for me to then move here and start something as well.
All right, awesome. So I like to ask my guests this question because I'm always curious about how everyone found their way into the Web3 space. Because everyone in the Web3 space came from Web2, right? And we all have our own experience. We have our journey, we have our experiences. So it's just quite interesting to hear from different people how they found their way into the space. Because as for me, I've been hearing Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, you mean I can buy some form of digital currency and I can exchange it for real money? It just sounded so far-fetched as at the time. And I didn't take it serious until the pandemic when it became more interesting. I know during the pandemic was when the NFT craze was everywhere. Everyone was buying and selling NFTs. And so I just picked it up again. And I'm glad I did, really. I'm actually glad I did. So it was great hearing about your experience. So I would also like to ask you, Jay, that, there was a problem you probably identified in the market, right? Or you identified in the industry that led you to founding Supersight. So what was this problem and what gap did you see in the market?
Thank you. That's an awesome question. And essentially, I'd started off, just like hearing from my friends and hearing about all these things. I started off trading, investing in the space, right? That's how I started off. And then we ended up in 2021. There's a small group of us who ended up getting together. We started trading, investing together. I created that group, and then one of the investments we made was in an early NFT marketplace. And I'd had issues with data. I'd had issues because I wasn't super technical at the time. Even Etherscan was hard to use for me. It was like, how do I answer my crypto questions? This is such a difficult space. When you first come here, even setting up a MetaMask wallet is difficult. But when we were advising the NFT marketplace, I realized there were technical people there, there were non-technical people there, but they were all having difficulties with data. There was no one place for them to easily get data. And I realized it wasn't just me and my friends who had this issue. It was a wider business issue. It was a bigger issue in this space. And that led me to my co-founders. And then as we did market research, we actually ended up doing a lot of interviews. We talked to businesses, we talked to retail traders, we talked to retail traders with size, right, who traded some size. We talked to hedge funds in the space. And actually one of the largest hedge funds in this space, right, one of the biggest names who you likely will know. We were talking to their team and they were telling us, hey, we come from the Web2 world, right? And there's no one tool for us to get information with here. We have to use this and we have to use this. And then sometimes we'll forget that this tool even exists. So we knew we had to sort this. We knew we had to start somewhere and sort this problem out.
Wow. Awesome. And as a follow-up question to that, is Supersight like the first company to start something like this in the space, or do you have like other major competitors?
Everyone has competitors, right? You have to, when you're starting off, you have to understand that there's always a competitor. And if you don't have a clear competitor, which 99% of the times you do in some way, if you don't, you have to ask, what are people doing instead of this? And is it a big enough problem or pain point, right? So one of the things for us was, like, people can't get our data. What's one of the ways that people are doing it? Well, they're using things like Twitter to gather it, right? That's in a way a competitor. It's a competitive place where people are going to. And there are the data tools out there. For us, we're just the first to solve the problem of text SQL, where you can type in your question in plain English and you can search anything about the blockchain relating to the blockchain. So we calculate it for you, we compute it, right? It's not just things we scrape from the web, we just get it from another website, we calculate it for you and answer that question. So we're the first to do that. We type your question in natural language, we translate it into code, we fetch that data from the blockchain and get you the answer.
Man, awesome. So let's talk about your experience with blockchain data. Obviously, you have experience accessing blockchain data. So for our audience and listeners unfamiliar with this, can you explain on-chain versus on-chain data, off-chain and on-chain data, and their importance?
For sure, yeah. No, thank you. So let's break it down into real basic way, right? So let's explain it how maybe someone who's not very familiar with even crypto, how they'd understand this better. So if we go back, right, let's say we all have credit card statements from our banks. We have credit card statements from our banks. It says your name and it says where you've been shopping at, right? Now on the blockchain, rather than saying your name, you're represented by a number. You're represented by 0x something, right? And below that, we have all your transactions. So it'll be the same like on your credit card statement where you've been shopping, what you've been buying. Here on the blockchain, though, it's all public, right? The problem is, even though we have all of this public data and it's so useful, right? Like who bought this and this, just like on credit card statements, right? Let's see. If we could access loads of people's information, we could see things like, well, who's been shopping at pizza place and who's been shopping at this department store, this shopping store, right? Similarly, on the blockchain, we can search who's been interacting with this financial protocol and who's been also buying this NFT. So there's a wealth of information on there that can help companies, that can help them better target their products, that can see what type of user interacts with them, who are the true users, right? That's kind of the true measure of on-chain data. So it's all the data that's public on the blockchain that's visible to practically anyone, but it's hard to truly look into it because there's so much of it. Now, on-chain data, off-chain data is more things like podcasts, social feeds like on Twitter, news articles, Discord and Telegram groups. These are all off-chain places, right, that you can gather data from. And the most beautiful place is where you can gather both of these worlds and put them together. So you have the on-chain world and the off-chain world, and you can gather insights from them together when you search it.
All right, awesome. Still on chain and off chain. So, what unique insights does Supersight provide by combining on chain and off chain crypto data analysis?
Awesome. No, and that relates nicely to your previous question, and this will explain things a bit better. So we allow you to search nearly anything relating to on-chain data in one click and off-chain data. So on-chain is the most important. This is the part that we solved in a proprietary way. No one solved this like how we have. So let's say you're saying who bought X and Y NFT, or who bought Lido or any token between $1 and 1.5. Or you could say something like who bought X token, right? Let's say it's SAVM, a recent popular Bitcoin layer 2. Who bought it within the first hour of it launching, right? So that's the on-chain side. For the off-chain side, you might search something like, what are Telegram trading bots? What is account abstraction? What are ZK proofs? So now I've explained the on-chain side, what you might search, and on the off-chain side separately, how they're brought together and combining them. You might ask something like, why did the price of Bored Ape fall, right? On the on-chain side, it might be that two people sold 15 of these NFTs each. On the off-chain side, it might be that there was a negative news piece around the founders. It may also be that Pudgy Penguins have been doing really well and they're rising. They've used better marketing techniques. So we can give you the combination of these things to better understand why a certain event has happened.
Okay. So I'm guessing now that it's like having the best of both worlds in one place.
That's the dream. That's the idea for sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's nice. I mean, having to have all your data in one place, I don't have to check your data in one place. Having to go to another place again outside that particular platform to go find extra data. I think it actually feels really good. It saves time and it's more organized and detailed.
For sure.
That's super cool, really. Okay, so away from the technical terms, let's come back to your experience as an entrepreneur in Web3 and crypto. So as an entrepreneur in crypto, right, what have been your biggest lessons learned around founding and funding blockchain startups? Because most people, they don't really know how to go about it. They don't have any idea of how to start, but you've been there, you've done it, you're currently doing it, you had your experience, you have your failures, your wins, and whatnot. So what has your biggest lessons been learned around founding and funding blockchain startups?
Yeah, and a great question. And actually, this reminds me of a quote that I just read the other day, right? It's from Paul Graham. One of the things he says is, there are many talented people who fail and end up never getting somewhere, or smart people, right? But rarely do you ever see persistent people not getting anywhere, right? So that's the first thing you got to realize. We've seen other people who are trying to create something similar to us, but they were just tourists in the space. They left, they gave up quickly, right? So I'll say that firstly, persistence in any venture you're going to do really, really matters. Most of these entrepreneurs that you see, that you love, that are your heroes, they had to persist a ton. And there are a lot of wins in the process. Moving on, right? Let's go into some more specifics here. I think firstly, in blockchain itself, the idea matters. Or any VC-related startup that you're going to pursue, the idea matters. They will ask you when you're raising, hey, what about this competitor? What about that competitor? They've raised this much money. Why are you better? Why are they not going to kill you? Right? Or this competitor is somewhat similar. They're not exactly the same. They're somewhat similar. What's stopping them from venturing into your space? Right? So have answers to things like that ready. Understand your competitive landscape, and the idea itself matters. If it's been done before, it's a bit harder. So make sure it's somewhat differentiated, right? Make sure there's something really different about you, and have a very good reason for that differentiation, or a few, right? And also defensibility matters. How are you defensible? Why is not a larger player going to just enter your space? What's stopping them? How are you defensible once you do get users? Another thing that's interesting is, how much, when I talked about the raise, right? how much have others raised compared to you, that can make it harder for you to raise. If someone's raised 100 million and they're competing against you in some way, that's going to make it hard. Yeah. They're going to be like, hey, they've got endless funding. For funding itself, have a clear plan. I think we did it. It was a difficult time. We got into our raise. We spoke to tons and tons of VCs. We spoke to probably nearly 80 to raise our round, right? People have done much more, right? People have done much more. Jensen, I remember I was watching a podcast from them guys recently. They raised like a $43 million round. They were saying in their first round, they spoke to 100 plus VCs. They spoke to 100 plus VCs in their first round. And then by the time they reached their Series A, which was their third round, they raised 43 million, right? So even they had to have a lot of conversations. But yeah, have a clear plan. One of my friends did it really, really well. He spoke to angels first. So angel investors. He asked everyone he knew in his network to list some angels that they may know and list the funds that they knew. Like he even had a list of funds that he was interested in and they could tick if they knew those guys. And then what he'd do is he got the angels, the dollars in from them first. He got $150,000. And then he spoke to VCs after that. Once he already had 150K in the bank, and he could be like, hey guys, we've already got these commitments. Do you guys want to join? And since you've already got some money committed to you, it makes it a lot easier, right? And the final thing I'd say on this, I'm giving you some really good tips here, guys. I hope you're taking some notes here. I wish someone told me these things. But finally, I'd say find founders with complementary skills, right? Find founders who maybe enjoy doing things that you don't. You might not like fundraising. You might not like having 10, 11 calls in a day. You might just like coding, right? And then, yeah, you could do these things. You might be a technical person on the team. You may be able to do these things, but will you do it? You got to ask yourself those kinds of questions as well. But equally, just complementary skills. Is someone better at product? Is someone better at the business side? Is someone better at the technical side? Are two of you better at the technical side, but then you have your different kind of sub niches? Make sure you're looking at those kind of things.
All right, thank you so much, Jay. So you answered my follow-up questions already because aside sharing the lessons you've learned on your journey as a startup founder, I was going to ask that what advice will you give other founders that are looking to build crypto or Web3 companies?
I could still ask I could still definitely answer a few things there as well, for sure.
That will be great.
Yeah. I think one of the things for this space is, right, for crypto Web3 companies, this first phrase I'm going to say is cliche, but there's a reason why it's cliche. I really believe you just have to go for it in this space. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I saying cliche for easier? It's because the space is still being invented. It's still being made. So no one is a true expert, right? Experts have often only been around here for a few years. So I'm a blockchain expert, but a lot of these experts have only been here for a few years. In a few years' time, you could be one of these experts in this space. More true than nearly any other space because it's still being invented, right? So you're creating history. So don't be afraid, right? And actually, there's an article I read like a year or two ago, and it's a partner from A16Z, and he's looking at a huge number of deals all the time, and he's talking about how he's seeing nearly every trend. He's seeing so many deals, but he still only knows 5% of what's happening in crypto, right? Because so much is going on. That's why there's so much room for you to be an expert, because no one really knows the entire space completely. There's still so much to figure out. There's still so much of the space being created. Then I think the other thing is, I think the final point I'd make in this is, if you look at a lot of billionaires, if you look at a lot of people who got really, really wealthy, they really got rich. They may have multiple investments, they may have multiple things, but they really got rich by being in the same space for decades and really being in one industry, one idea, usually, right? So again, it's kind of the persistence thing. You have to keep going. Get into this space. Don't just create one NFT project and leave. Get in and try to stay in, right? And if you're not convinced, then pick another space and do the same thing there. But at least give it a reasonable chance, this space. Most of you who are listening have probably seen multiple cycles by now. And this space is going up again and things are moving again. So there's only so many times you can tell yourself, hey, I missed the boat.
Yeah, that's right. This is great and valuable advice, Jay. Thank you. Thanks for that. And so that will bring me to my next question. I mean, obviously you've raised VC fund for your startup. So, what tips do you have for pitching crypto projects to investors? Because most people are skeptical about crypto projects. They're
Yeah,
like, it's the industry fluctuates a lot. It's not stable, and most people say, you know what, I don't want to put my money there. I don't want to invest my money in this project. So, what tips do you have for pitching crypto projects to investors, especially VC companies?
for sure. For sure. Yeah. But that's the super helpful question, I think, for the audience. Um, I think speak to founders who've done it before, right? The easiest way you're going to learn about anything is make friends, speak to people who've done it before or who are going in the process. One of these guys I'm telling you about who raised 150K from angels and then did the rest of the round, he did it in a more methodical way than us at the time, right? He actually ended up finishing raising his round around the same time as us. And we used to get on weekly calls. We used to talk to each other every week. So ideally find someone who's one step ahead of you, or even, by the way, he did successfully raised another round before, but he gave all the money back. He wasn't convinced in the idea. He gave all the money back. He found a new idea and raised again, all over again in the same space, right? So find someone who's one step ahead of you or in a similar place to you, but really has super high potential. You got to be careful. You got to make sure that they do have high potential and there are reasons for it. They're not just randomly your friend, right? And try to work together, right? But ideally speak to people who've done it before even. That's one avenue, people who are kind of doing it. This guy had done it before because he did raise. Get their advice on your deck, get advice on how to structure the raise, get advice on any materials for investors, any questions that might pop up, right? And then I'd really say you have to get the simple parts right. But let's talk about your deck, the pitch deck that you're going to show investors. You have your problem slide. What's the problem? What's the solution? Why now? Why you/the team? Ideally, max around 10 to 15 slides for a pre-seed deck. You should not be going any longer. No one's going to read it, right? We have a docsend where you can see how long people actually view your deck for. And honestly, if anyone goes over 2-3 minutes, that's a long time for them viewing our deck. And I look and I wonder, hey, why did they spend so long here? Usually people read your whole deck in a minute or two max. So think about it, 15 slides in 1 or 2 minutes, right? They digest it that quickly. That's like, 10 seconds a slide or so. So anything more is not going to make any sense. So get those initial parts right. Make sure your team is strong. Make sure you're onto a good idea. And then don't be discouraged. There'll be a lot of rejections, right? I've just given you some examples of people who got rejected a lot, including us. So you have to carry on.
All right, awesome. That's really helpful. Even me as a podcast host, I picked 1 or 2 lessons from there. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so away from VC fund and crypto startups, let's discuss crypto trading. So, as a crypto trader, Jay, what advice would you give retail investors that are just starting out today?
Okay, awesome. So for retail investors starting out today, this is what I would do if I was starting off again. And actually, I've seen quite a few people get successful this way, right? I've met a bunch of traders I know a bunch of people who went from 3 figures, literally hundreds of dollars, to millions in trading, or 4 figures, thousands of dollars, and went to 7 figures of trading. I've also met traders who have 8-figure portfolios, right? And people who've made a lot of money in the space. A lot of them have this common thing between them. Ideally, you should find a small group you trade with, and all your niche info is shared there. You help each other. One of you might be a specialist in AI. One of you may be a specialist in GameFi. One of you may be a specialist in ETH layer 2s, right? And you can share all of this information. That's one of the key ways I won in this space as well, actually. I ended up joining a larger group. I ended up seeing people who were really successful in that group, and I made a new group from that group with the people who seemed like they had really high potential. And a few of us got together, we would share ideas, and we did reasonably well, right? And some of those guys, by the way, they went ahead and created other groups as well. They have their own additional mini groups, and then they shared intel between them, and one of them has like a mini VC now, right? So that's my initial thing. Find other people who are doing good, who find good alpha, work hard, share back with them, and get into a little group together. And ideally focus and become good at a few little places. One of these 8-figure traders told me, actually, he said, ideally, you become good at a very specific place. If it's NFTs, AI, gaming, or even specifically like, hey, I'm looking at Celestia or Injective and the specific ecosystem in that, right? That's going to become my specialist. So by the time the market turns in favor to that, now some of that may be too risky, so you have to still choose something decent. But when the market comes in tune with that, you'll be the expert on that. You'll have added a bunch of coins relating to that into your portfolio, right? And you will reap the gains of that. You'll become a mini expert in that when other people are just chasing every trend and some of them not winning anything, right? But equally, my final point here is don't leverage trade, right? Or only if there are some people who are really, really good at it, 1 out of 1,000. I know someone who's good at it, but don't leverage trade straight away. Be careful. There's a lot of money to be made here just in spot bags or being early. Being early gives you better chances, right? And don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Still have a diversified enough portfolio, depending how much you start with, right? And try to go for high conviction bets and start, but still have other things like BTC, ETH making up the majority of your portfolio. So nothing too bad happens if anything goes wrong.
Yeah. All right. So it's another question to that, Jake. So as an experienced crypto trader, of course, so what are strategies you found to be most effective for trading profitably? I mean, from your own experience.
Sure. I'll make this one a bit shorter because it's related to the earlier one as well. I think there are 3 key things. Number 1, have a group to share ideas with. That's something I already mentioned a little bit. That's what was really, really important to me, right, for trading profitably. Number 2, have a diary, right? How did you even put emotions down in that diary? I made this trade, okay. How did you feel when you're making that trade, when you made that loss-making trade or the most profitable trade that you made? How were you feeling? Maybe you were angry that day. Maybe you were happy that day. Maybe you wanted a revenge trade. Maybe there are other reasons why that trade went bad. You weren't feeling in the right mood. And number 3, what are you good at? I might be better at more centralized exchange coins or larger ones and thinking about how they're going to go up. I had a feeling Solana was going to do very well this cycle, for example, right? And maybe getting into some new coins. But you might be better, and I'm better at maybe tokens and NFTs. But you have to ask yourself, am I better at NFTs? What do I understand more? What am I have my edge compared to other people? Start to get an idea which places you're better at.
Okay. Let's talk about mistakes. Of course, people make lots of mistakes when it comes to trading crypto, buying and selling coins and whatnot. So, over the years, what common mistakes do you see people make when trading crypto that they should avoid totally?
Perfect. Okay, great. Common mistakes. I think I'll give 3 main kind of ideas here. 1, I think they buy it just because influencers are talking about it. Ideally, and this is why I see most good traders, they're buying before the influencers buy it. They have an idea, they've done some research, and when it's mentioned too much, that's when they're selling it, right? Or they already have an idea of when they're going to sell it as well. Number 2, have price targets. People just enter and then leave it there, and then they're holding this bag forever. This thing may never go up, and then that's how generational wealth sometimes lost, right? Have an idea, ideally, when you're going to enter, when you're going to leave, write it down. So when you see yourself, when the price rises there, look at that note you made in writing, and then see that. And then be like, hey, am I changing my mind? Why? I've written this down. Number 3, know things like catalysts, where you may be wrong on your idea, what might invalidate your trade. Have these kind of positions and these writings on board as well.
Right. There you have it, guys. If you're listening to this, now you know what to avoid when trading, what to run away from, and what you should not even what you should not even have on your list at all when it comes to trading. So Jay, I'm curious. Can you walk us through a typical day for you as a crypto startup CEO? I mean, how do you manage your time and priorities?
Sure, for sure, yeah. So for me, usually, I think a lot of people say no day is the same. Well, I think running a crypto company is definitely like that, right? It's definitely like that compared to maybe a lot of other positions because the space moves so fast as well. But on a daily basis, I still have some idea, of course. I list 3 to 5 daily things that I need to tick off. I write those on my list. I have them down. So every morning that I'm there, they're all written. I know exactly what's in front of me. I don't have to think too much about that. Number 2, I have a priority list for that team. We agree on it weekly as co-founders. We sit down, we make like a little board. We're like, hey, this person has this priority for this week, right? So then we have weekly goals, and I write my own daily goals, right? And then finally, things can change a lot, right? Things can change a lot. I end up sometimes doing a whole task. It's maybe not needed for me. But for me, generally, it's a lot of sales, it's fundraising, it's partnerships, it's outreach. It's a lot of those sorts of things that I handle. It's getting the people we need in place. We need to make a hire, try to get some potential hires or CVs in front of my co-founders who may review those candidates. It's especially those kind of things. Keeping our current investors happy, catching up with them. So all of these sorts of things we especially, that I do specifically on a day-to-day basis.
But do you ever feel like 24 hours is not enough for you to get through all your tasks for the day?
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes I have a thought. I'm like, hey, imagine how much better it would be if I didn't have to sleep.
I knew that's really insane.
But it's something you can't change, but I still think it sometimes.
But you seem to be managing it well. Seem to be managing and handling it well.
Yeah, I mean, we all have the same number of hours of the day, right? And some people end up creating crazy, huge companies and huge ideas. So just got to realize that everyone's got the same amount of time and they're living the same day as you.
Right. So looking ahead, what excites you most about the growth of crypto and Web3, and where do you see these opportunities?
Awesome question. I think there are a few things, right? I think I'll go down to maybe 3 key things again. Number one is the ETF, right? BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, is an advocate for crypto now. Larry Fink, the head person at BlackRock, he's talking about crypto regularly now, right? So there's traditional finance entering, there's regulation relaxing in some ways in the US, right? And there's regulation coming. And then number 2, I think that's really exciting for me. I think it means that a lot more people are going to come in, right? Number 2, I think opportunities. There's new sectors in AI, new sectors in crypto, which haven't been explored yet, like AI, right? The market cap for all AI tokens is around $15 billion right now, right? This is as small as one of the largest DeFi projects in the bull run, right? There's sold DeFi projects which had like 9 million or 10 million, 10 billion, 9 billion or 10 billion, probably even like 15 plus in the actual bull market. So this is tiny. There's new sectors emerging here. There's new technology. There's more people coming in from Web2. There's institutions buying now. People were saying that last cycle, but this time there's actual names to it, right? So that's super, super exciting. And finally, for me, it's global growth over the next 2 years, right? It's a global potential for this sector. So the last 10 to 20 years, stocks really super outperformed bonds. Now I think it's a time where crypto will continue to trump stock. It'll do far, far, far better than stock. And if you're not in crypto for this decade, it'll be a huge, huge opportunity lost, right? So for me, all of these things are exciting. The younger generation really understands it as well. There are some nations where a huge number of people own it. The UK is the 3rd largest as a percentage of population, 3rd largest owner of Bitcoin as a population. Nigeria, like 47% of people have interacted with crypto in some sort of way. So these are all exciting things. In certain geographical parts of the world, we're seeing crypto dominating increasingly.
All right, awesome. And thanks for sharing that. Well, as for me, I'm particularly excited about the opportunities to come because, like you mentioned earlier, I'm still in the early stages, and I can't wait. For one thing, I'm actually excited about is I can't wait for when Web3 finally gets that mainstream adoption, and then we have so many people in the space because that means more ideas, more new projects, more new startups, more users, and whatnot. The future looks pretty exciting, though. We ask, right?
Yeah.
So what exciting.
I'm so glad that you kind of see the same vision too, and obviously that's a testament to you staying in for this space of staying in the space for so long too.
Yeah, but I'm also doing my bit, sharing this knowledge, talking to people like you, who come on the show to share their knowledge and experiences. So the word spreads. The more we educate people, the more the word spreads about the space, and we get more people on board.
No, thank you so much for doing such a service to this community.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jay, for an exciting conversation. It was so great learning so much about the crypto space from you. And I hope that we can have you again on the show one of these days.
I would love to. Hopefully, as the company grows and we become much, much bigger, and I learn loads more lessons. And as this podcast grows as well, I'd love to be on again. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up today's episode of the Web3 Quick podcast. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you have any feedback or questions, please reach out on social media or send us an email at web3clickbites@gmail.com. Thanks again to our guests for joining us. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more exciting content, so be sure to subscribe and tune in. Bye.